It's January 8th, 2025. Yeah, a new year. But the regulatory landscape is already shifting. Lots to cover today on Regulation Rangers.
Right.
From, fishing quotas all the way to airspace updates. I'm Julian Cross.
And I'm Elena Harper.
And we are here to help make sense of all the rules that just shape our world.
Well said. And there's certainly no shortage of new rules and proposals for us to unpack today.
Right.
We've got updates from 8 different agencies.
Oh, wow.
So let's jump right in.
All right, sounds good. Let's start with the Department of Commerce. What's caught your eye over there?
Well, one thing that's really interesting is a temporary rule from the National Marine Fisheries Service.
Oh.
You might know them as NMFS.
Yeah.
They're reallocating a portion of the Pacific cod catch in the Bering Sea and Aleutian Islands, specifically for vessels under 60 feet that use hook and line or pot gear.
Interesting. So they're making sure that smaller fishing operations get a piece of the pie.
Exactly. And this reallocation actually came into effect just a few days ago on January 2nd.
Oh, wow. So this is...
So it's really recent.
Very recent, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it a conservation measure? Or is it more about, balancing the interests of different fishing groups?
Yeah.
Something to think about for sure.
Yeah, definitely something to look into.
All right, let's move on to the Department of Energy.
Oh.
What have they been up to?
Well, the Department of Energy is updating their testing procedures for air conditioners and heat pumps.
Okay.
And they're going to be incorporating the latest industry standards, which are called AHRI 210240-2024. And this focuses on measuring energy efficiency.
And just for our listeners, AHRI, that's the Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Institute.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Now, this is where it gets really interesting.
Yes.
Does this mean we might see changes in those energy efficiency labels on new AC units? Those ones that tell you how much energy a unit uses?
Absolutely. This could have a real impact on how appliances are labeled and marketed to consumers.
That makes sense.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it could even lead to more energy efficient homes.
Wow.
And potentially even lower energy bills for folks.
Something we can all appreciate.
Definitely.
Now, there's also a rule about energy conservation standards for walk-in coolers and freezers.
Right.
But it doesn't list any actual changes.
That's right.
That seems a little strange, doesn't it?
It does. It's possible this is just like an administrative update or something.
Okay.
But it might also signal that some more substantial changes are on the horizon.
Yeah. We'll have to stay tuned.
Definitely something to keep an eye on.
Okay. Now let's shift gears to the Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay.
What's new in the world of health and well-being?
Well, the FDA has issued draft guidance for food manufacturers, and this focuses specifically on sanitation programs for low-moisture foods.
Okay.
So think things like chips, jerky, those kinds of things that are susceptible to certain types of contamination.
So this is about keeping our snack food safe.
Exactly.
Got it.
Making sure that consumers are protected.
Now, is this a new rule? Or is it more like a suggestion,
It's important to note that this is just draft guidance.
Okay.
So not a finalized rule yet.
Gotcha.
It's really about giving manufacturers, a heads up on FDA's current thinking on sanitation practices.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, let's move on to the Department of Homeland Security.
Okay.
What's happening on the security front?
Well, with the 60th presidential inauguration coming up, the Coast Guard is establishing a security zone in Washington, D.C.'s waterways. And during this period, there will be no entry allowed without authorization from the captain of the port.
So no uninvited guests crashing the party by boat.
That's right.
Okay, that makes sense. Big event, lots of security. What about the Department of the Interior?
Right.
What news from them?
Well, we've got kind of a good news story here.
Oh, good.
The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is actually proposing to remove a species of wildflower from the endangered species list.
Oh.
It's called ladies' tresses.
Okay.
And, this suggests that conservation efforts have really been successful in helping this plant recover.
That is fantastic news.
It is.
A real win for conservation.
Yeah.
What do you think, contributed to its recovery? Was it habitat restoration or something else entirely?
It's likely a combination of factors. Right. To really understand the specifics, we'd need to look at the Fish and Wildlife Service's report and look at all the conservation actions that they implemented. Okay,
that makes sense. Well, on that positive note, let's turn to the Department of Transportation.
Right.
What's moving and shaking over there?
Well, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA,
right.
They have finalized new rules for child car seats
Oh, yeah.
And these changes are aimed at improving ease of use for the lower anchors and tether anchors, which should make car seats easier to install correctly.
That's a big deal.
It is, and it will keep kids safer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I imagine a lot of parents and caregivers are going to be breathing a sigh of relief when they hear this. These rules go into effect in March, right?
Correct. March 10th, 2025.
So mark your calendars, folks. And speaking of transportation, the FAA has also been busy making airspace changes
Yes.
in several locations across the country.
They have.
We're talking Giddings, Texas,
Okay.
Pontiac, Illinois, El Dorado, Arkansas,
Wow.
Smith Center, Kansas, Gaylord, Michigan, and Follett, Texas.
That's quite a list.
It is. What's going on? What's behind all these specific location choices? It makes you wonder.
Well, these airspace adjustments could be related to a variety of factors, from new flight paths to maybe the growing presence of drones in our skies.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, let's wrap things up with the Environmental Protection Agency.
Right.
What's new in the world of environmental regulations?
Well, the EPA is issuing a correction to a previous rule about the reclassification of major sources as area sources under the Clean Air Act.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that there was a typographical error in the original text.
Really? A typo?
Yes, and they're now rectifying that.
That seems like a pretty minor thing.
It might seem minor, but these rules actually have big consequences for businesses and industries. And a typo could lead to misinterpretations and even legal issues.
Yeah.
Accuracy is crucial when it comes to environmental regulations.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It really highlights the importance of getting those little details, right?
Absolutely.
Anything else from the EPA?
Yes. They've also released a final determination about dry cleaning facilities that use perchloroethylene as a solvent.
Perchloroethylene.
It's also known as PCE.
Okay.
And this is interesting because there's already a phase-out of PCE underway under the Toxic Substances Control Act.
Right.
So this EPA determination is being made in light of those existing regulations.
So it's kind of like a layered approach.
Exactly. A good example of how regulations can kind of overlap and evolve as new information and technologies emerge.
Definitely makes you realize how complex this whole regulatory world can be.
It really is.
Finally, let's see what's happening in the Executive Office of the President.
Okay.
Any interesting developments there?
We do have a couple of presidential proclamations to highlight.
Okay.
President Redacted has declared January both National Mentoring Month and National Stalking Awareness Month.
Interesting to see those two proclamations, side by side.
Yeah.
One focusing on fostering positive relationships and support, while the other addresses a serious issue that impacts so many people.
It is a good reminder, though, of just the broad scope of issues that the government addresses, from promoting positive social change to tackling difficult problems.
Absolutely. And it also speaks to the power of using these proclamations.
Yeah.
To raise awareness and encourage action.
Right.
Okay. Anything else happening in the executive office?
There's also a memorandum about delegating authority under the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961. Unfortunately, we don't have the full details here.
So it's a bit of a mystery for now.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it could involve some significant changes.
Possibly.
In how foreign aid is administered.
Yeah, maybe something to investigate further.
Definitely. All right, Lana, we covered a lot of ground today.
We did.
Thanks for guiding us through this regulatory maze.
It's always a pleasure to delve into these rules and regulations with you.
And thank you to our listeners for joining us on Regulation Rangers. To explore these regulations in detail and stay up to date, visit www.topiclake.com.